Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're looking at something that completely dictates our modern lives, yet it remains almost entirely out of sight. When we order something online or fill up our cars, we tend to think of the global supply chain as this massive, frictionless, almost magical digital network. But the fascinating reality? The modern global economy is entirely dependent on a few highly fragile physical water systems. Today, we're going to explore exactly how the physical limits of our planet actually control global trade.
I want you to imagine something for a second. Put yourself right there on the bridge of a massive cargo ship. We're talking a vessel carrying thousands of containers or maybe millions of barrels of oil. You're steering this absolute behemoth from your point of view through a super narrow 2-mile-wide lane of water. To your left and your right, shallow reefs, hostile coastlines, or hundreds of other massive ships trying to navigate just as closely. In these incredibly narrow lanes, any mistake, any disruption, or sudden conflict doesn't just delay your ship, it literally stops global commerce in its tracks.
Okay, let's dive into this by defining exactly what we're looking at. We are talking about maritime choke points. Essentially, a choke point is a narrow channel along a widely used global sea route that's absolutely critical to global energy security and trade. Think of these narrow passages as the valves of the global economy. They dictate the speed, the cost, and the sheer volume of goods moving from one side of the world to the other. If a choke point slows down, trust me, the entire world's economy feels the friction.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. Palk Strait, nature's blockade. 2. Dover, the ultimate traffic jam. 3. Hormuz, a security flashpoint. And 4. The fragility of commerce.
Let's jump right into part 1. Palk Strait, nature's blockade.
Now, what's really interesting about this first case study is the sheer physical limit imposed by geography. The Palk Strait separates the Indian state of Tamil Nadu from the northern province of Sri Lanka. And the problem here? Well, modern global shipping relies on massive cargo vessels that require deep water to safely navigate. We're talking a draft clearance of well over 15 to 20 meters. But the Palk Strait is incredibly shallow. Sure, the central part can reach about 35 meters, but the region bound by a chain of low-lying islands and shoals, collectively known as Ram Setu or Adam's Bridge, has a water depth of typically just 1 to 3 meters. That's barely deeper than a typical swimming pool in some spots. It is physically impassable for a large modern ship. Nature has effectively built a wall right beneath the surface.
And because nature acts as this unbreakable blockade, the shipping industry really has no choice. Large ships simply cannot pass through the Palk Strait. So instead, they're forced to take massive, expensive, and super time-consuming detours all the way around the entire island of Sri Lanka. Now, over the years, there have been historical proposals to dredge the strait to create a shipping channel, like the Sethu Samudram Shipping Canal project back in 2005. But due to religious opposition and environmental concerns, the shoals remain completely untouched, and that physical barrier remains firmly in place.
Moving on to part 2. Strait of Dover, the ultimate traffic jam.
So we just saw a strait where geography stops ships entirely, but in the Strait of Dover, the water is plenty deep. Here, it's the sheer volume of traffic that creates a severe bottleneck. The number 33 is absolutely critical. The strait is just 33 kilometers, or about 20.5 miles wide at its narrowest point between England and France. To put that into perspective for you, on a clear day, you can literally see the white cliffs of Dover from the French coastline with your naked eye. It's this micro-scale stretch of water carrying a macro-scale economic burden.
And here's why that 33-kilometer width is so terrifying from a logistics standpoint. Just look at this intersecting traffic flow. You've got over 400 commercial vessels passing through every single day on a southwest to northeast axis, moving between the Atlantic Ocean and the North Sea. But cutting directly across that massive flow of cargo ships is a heavy layer of passenger ferries moving northwest to southeast between the UK and France. This perpendicular traffic creates an absolute nightmare of a collision hazard. It's essentially a giant oceanic highway intersection without a stoplight, relying entirely on strictly enforced traffic separation schemes just to prevent a catastrophe.
It's honestly kind of mind-blowing to contrast what's happening below the water with what's happening above it. Down below, we have the Channel Tunnel, the Eurotunnel, running 45 meters beneath the seabed. It's this marvel of fixed, organized physical infrastructure, but right above it, floating on the surface is a dense, highly regulated, and constantly shifting web of maritime traffic. Even with the tunnel handling a massive amount of cross-channel transit, the sheer volume of surface traffic in Dover requires a 24-hour continuous watch by HM Coast Guard and French maritime authorities, just to keep commerce flowing safely and keep ships from colliding.
Let's move to part 3 and see how this builds. Strait of Hormuz, a security flashpoint.
We've looked at nature's blockade in Palk and the crazy traffic management of Dover. Now we arrive at our final choke point. This is a place where human conflict and geopolitics create the ultimate bottleneck. 20 million. That's the number of barrels of oil that transit the Strait of Hormuz, located between Iran to the north and Oman and the UAE to the south, every single day. It is the primary export route for oil produced in the Persian Gulf heading out to global markets.
And this brilliantly illustrates what 20 million barrels actually means for the rest of us. The Strait of Hormuz accounts for up to 25% of the world's total seaborne oil trade. Let that sink in. 1/4 of the ocean-bound energy that powers our cities, our factories, and our cars flows through this single corridor. And commercial vessels navigating this space, they're restricted to designated shipping lanes that are just 2 miles wide in each direction. It is the ultimate geographic bottleneck carrying the ultimate economic payload.
Because of its immense strategic value, Hormuz is highly sensitive to geopolitical escalation. Let's look analytically at the data from the 2026 military escalation known as Operation Epic Fury. On March 7th alone, widespread electronic interference resulted in over 1,650 vessels across the region facing GPS and AIS jamming. The operational risk became so incredibly high that between March 7th and March 11th, commercial vessel crossings completely plummeted. A strait that typically sees 70 to 80 crossings a day, it dropped to just 10. This data shows exactly how rapidly commercial shipping logistics break down when maritime insurance risks spike due to conflict. And of course, the global reaction was immediate. During those March 2026 disruptions, Brent crude prices spiked over 4%, climbing to $103 per barrel. These targeted incidents and the electronic interference in the strait directly caused rapid price volatility across global energy markets. It's pretty simple. When ships stop moving in Hormuz, the price of everything, everywhere, goes up.
Which brings us to part 4, the fragility of commerce.
We've explored 3 distinctly different maritime choke points today. One blocked by sand, one choked by traffic, and one disrupted by jamming. So the crucial point is captured perfectly in this intelligence brief on the Hormuz conflict. It states, the Strait of Hormuz does not need to be fully closed to disrupt global trade. Targeted attacks and electronic interference are sufficient to constrain movement. And honestly, this applies to all our choke points. A strait doesn't have to be completely blocked to cause a crisis. Just the friction, the delays, the detours, the skyrocketing insurance premiums is more than enough to ripple through the entire global economy. We are entirely dependent on the physical stability of these incredibly narrow waters.
Which leaves us with this final, pretty stark reality to consider. We are building larger and larger ships. The volume of global trade is continually increasing, and regional geopolitical conflicts certainly show no signs of stopping. So as these massive vessels are forced to navigate the unchanging, extreme bottlenecks of these fragile waters, how will the global economy adapt to survive? It's a massive logistical puzzle that's going to define the future of global commerce for sure. I really hope this explainer gave you a fascinating new lens to view the world through. Thank you so much for learning with me today.